Yeah. And then we look at the foundation of math, and you have things like logic and the building blocks to begin to get one plus one equaling two, and these sort of very fundamental, rudimentary things that you need to actually have anything as well. I really like the fact that you brought math into this. I was speaking to Eric Steinhardt a while ago, and I'm going to speak to him in a few weeks' time for the show, and he was talking about atheistic Platonism. It's a fascinating concept around how Platonic principles actualize existence, and we are here today. It's got a really interesting kind of broad sweep or explanation to it, and yeah, I'm looking forward to talking about that. But before I dive off a random tangent, do you want to touch on the foundation of math and how and why that is something that needs to be inbuilt at the foundation? Although, as I say that, it seems really obvious that it does. So I don't know. I'll pass it back to you for a moment or two.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I love hearing that you're in conversation with Eric. I mean, he's a great philosopher, and I'm I'm friends with him, and he sent me his work on atheistic Platonism. And I mean, I love his theory. The thing that is so interesting to me about his theory is that it seems to include the elements of what I would call this kind of supreme foundation. And so, I mean, it's interesting because we could call it atheistic, but I mean, we could also maybe call it theistic because he's talking about these foundational things that have a kind of necessary existence as well as a power, as well as even a kind of power to design, if we use the word design in a broad way. I mean, I think sometimes we sort of, as human beings, project human qualities into our theories of God, and so we sort of think of God as thinking in sort of the way that humans think, or being in the way that humans are. And if the nature of fundamental reality is that, well, it's a reality that is foundational, it is eternal, it does have these powers, even mind-like. That's why I use the phrase mind-like powers. Maybe this is giving us a description that is not an anthropomorphized description of fundamental reality, but I would say that it's very much a theistic, in the classical sense, description of fundamental reality. So I guess all my cards on the table. It's kind of an interesting ongoing conversation with Eric to even just see the common ground between his view and my own view, which tends to excite me, as you know. So yeah, so as far as mathematics go, it's fascinating, and I've been thinking about this even more recently with my book on the nature of consciousness and thoughts. How do thoughts come to be? There are two things here to explain. One would be the mathematical truths. So there are these truths about prime numbers. They go all the way up. There's no highest prime number. Okay, what explains that? When people are discovering these truths, there's a conjecture. Maybe they go all the way up. Maybe there's a highest prime number. Somebody comes along and proves that there's no highest prime number. Feels like we're discovering truths that correspond with some kind of prior existing mathematical reality that exists, or is, makes these things true even when we're not thinking about it. Because it's like my thoughts could go away and people could still, you could start thinking about math, and there's correct answers. The correct answers correspond with mathematical reality. So there's that. And then there's also the second aspect, which is the existence of beings who can come to know the mathematical reality. So both are parts of reality. There's a mathematical reality, mathematical truths, and then there's beings who can come to know about the mathematical reality. And neither is very trivial to understand. If you just have little marbles running around and hitting each other in space, those marbles on their own don't explain the mathematical truths about the prime numbers, for example. It's not because those marbles are hitting each other in a certain way that it's true that there's no highest prime number. That's not an explanation of the numbers. Um, Also, we don't really see how smashing marbles together is going to explain how people come to know that there's a mathematical realm. So I end up making the argument there that if the foundational reality is a foundation of all the dimensions of reality, and if mathematics is a dimension of reality, just like the moral landscape is a dimension of reality, it's got to somehow have the resources to be a foundation of the mathematical realm. And I argue if it has that mind-like nature or structure, then that's going to give it an ability to create the kind of beings who can know about mathematical realities, as well as it can even anchor the mathematical reality itself. In this book, I talk about the idea of a mind being an anchor for the principles of reasoning that are encoded in logic and utilized in the mathematical landscape. That's still something that I continue to think about, just to be forthright about that. I mean, it's a very kind of deep topic about kind of how you explain the mathematical realm. But my latest thoughts on this is that mind plays more of a role in this than I kind of previously thought. Mind helps to explain these things.
If you enjoyed this clip, then head on over to Locals to access the full conversation right now. Supporters can access the video version, and everyone can access the audio-only version of the conversation. I'll see you over there.